Welcome back, movie buffs. Today we're diving into a psychological thriller, The Ugly Stepsister. If you thought fairy tales were harmless bedtime stories, think again. The Ugly Stepsister 2025 is a dark, dazzling ride through trauma, obsession, and a legacy of lies. It's Cinderella, but through the twisted lens of a manipulator and a woman who'll do anything to get rich. But before we delve into this twisted fairy tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our deep dives into the most intriguing films. Now let's embark on this haunting journey. The story takes place in 18th century Central Europe, where beauty isn't just admired, it's a ruthless pursuit. Elvira and her younger sister, Alma, live with their widowed mother, Rebecca, who's recently remarried Otto, a wealthy landowner. Otto's daughter, Agnes, now becomes Elvira's stepsister. One day, Agnes decides to give Elvira a tour of the house. She leads her to the stables where she introduces her to Isaac, the stable boy who takes care of the horses. Later, they head to Agnes's room, where she proudly shows off her collection of expensive jewelry and fancy clothes. Elvira is overjoyed that her mother has finally married into wealth, dreaming of a life of comfort and luxury. She gazes out the window at the towering castle in the distance, imagining herself as the princess of this lavish world. It's been her dream for as long as she can remember, and she even carries a book of the prince's poetry close to her heart. That evening, as the family celebrates Otto and Rebecca's marriage, Otto, in a moment of reckless playfulness, grabs a piece of cake and hurls it at Elvira's face. The room is filled with nervous laughter as the women continue to giggle, unsure of how to react, until Otto suddenly gasps for air. Within seconds, he collapses, choking on his breath, blood spilling from his mouth as he dies of a heart attack. The playful mood shifts to horror in an instant. The next morning, Elvira brings coffee to Agnes's room, hoping to offer some comfort. She tries to share a story about how her family managed to move on after the death of their father, but Agnes snaps at her, her frustration boiling over. She accuses Elvira of lacking decency, bitterly adding that if it weren't for the money her mother brought into the marriage, Otto would never have married her. Stung by the harsh words, Elvira rushes to her mother's room to break the news. Otto's family is broke. But as she speaks, she's unaware that Otto's relatives have already taken everything of value, leaving them with nothing but a few coins. Devastated, her mother collapses into tears, her world unraveling. She feels utterly lost. No man of wealth would want to marry her now, especially with two daughters in her advancing age. In an attempt to comfort her mother, Elvira promises that she will marry the prince. But Rebecca, with a bitter edge, tells her to look in the mirror, a harsh reminder that she's not beautiful enough to become a princess. The next morning, news from the castle reaches their doorstep, and Elvira eagerly runs outside to hear what the messenger has brought. The king and his son, Prince Julian, are hosting a grand ball at the castle and are inviting all the noble virgins to attend. With the invitation in hand, Elvira can't help but daydream about what it would be like to dance with the prince, imagining their perfect moments together. When Rebecca hears about the invitation, she wastes no time. She immediately calls for a doctor to help prepare Elvira for the ball. The first step? Removing Elvira's braces, which the doctor does perfectly. The doctor then plans to reshape her nose, smoothing out the bump, in an attempt to make her more fairy tale beautiful, and in her mother's eyes, more worthy of Prince Julian's attention. Rebecca agrees to pay double once the surgery is complete. She chooses the exact shape she wants for Elvira's nose, and without any pain relief, the doctor begins his work. He takes a chisel and hammer to Elvira's nose, cutting through the cartilage. Elvira screams in agony, her face contorting in pain, while her mother watches with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Her sister, Alma, sits frozen in horror, unable to look away from the brutality unfolding before her. At the training center, a group of young women has gathered, each hoping to learn the art of becoming a perfect princess, charming, graceful, and capable of winning the prince's heart. Elvira sits alone, a piece of rope tied around her head to support her newly restructured nose, her face swollen and bruised. She looks out of place among the others, who seem more eager and less broken by their preparations. Moments later, Madame Sofie enters the room, her presence commanding attention. She informs the maidens that she and another woman will be overseeing the selection process. Only those who perform exceptionally well will pass the first stage and be chosen to attend the ball as part of the prince's royal selection. Madame Sofie reminds them that the prince won't be the only one in attendance. Rich and powerful men from all corners of the kingdom will be there too, searching for their future wives. Madame Sofie reminds them that if they don't win the prince's heart, there's still hope. they might catch the eye of one of the wealthy families attending the ball. The class begins and the first lesson is how to dance like a true princess. When the instructor turns around and sees Elvira's bruised face, she just shrugs, dismissing her to the back of the room. She asks Agnes to take Elvira's place at the front. At dinner, Elvira is served a small portion of lemon while everyone else digs into rich, hearty meals including Agnes. Agnes turns to Rebecca, casually mentioning that she's chosen a date for her father's burial. Rebecca, however, quickly dismisses the idea, saying they don't have the money for that right now. She tells Agnes they'll have to wait until after the ball when Elvira has secured a marriage to the prince. Fuming at her mother's response, Agnes snaps back, reminding her that the treatments to make Elvira beautiful have cost far more than a simple funeral, while her father's body rots away in the room. Rebecca, without hesitation, retorts that some things are just more expensive than others and that her husband's funeral shouldn't cost a dime. She goes on to suggest that since they're all family, Agnes should be willing to share some of her beautiful clothes with her sisters. Agnes, furious, storms away from the table and heads straight to her father's room to pray for him. But when she enters, the sight of his decaying body makes her heart drop. The reality of their situation hits her hard. The next few days are filled with relentless training sessions, balancing books on their heads, learning how to greet the prince with grace, and all the other rituals that are meant to prepare them to be the perfect princess. Soon, a list is posted showing the names of those who passed the training and made it to the next round. The girls rush to the board, some eagerly scanning for their names, while others leave with disappointment written all over their faces. When Elvira finds the list, she's stunned to see her name in place of someone else's, crossed out and replaced. A smile of satisfaction spreads across her face, and she can't help but daydream about her future with the prince, imagining the moments they'll share together. In the next class, the instructor demonstrates a special dance move and asks which of the girls can replicate it perfectly. Everyone raises their hands, Elvira included. The instructor, spotting her enthusiasm, picks Elvira to show the class how it's done. After Elvira demonstrates the dance moves, the instructor abruptly stops the music and calls her out in front of everyone. She harshly tells Elvira she's a failure and that she doesn't like her at all. She goes on to say that if it weren't for the bribe her mother paid, Elvira wouldn't have made it this far. The instructor then turns to Agnes and two other girls, asking them to demonstrate the moves instead, leaving Elvira sobbing in the corner. Later that evening, Elvira tries on some of Agnes's clothes, but she's too fat for them, a painful reminder of how far she feels from the image of beauty she's been chasing. In the morning, during a meeting with Madame Sofie, Elvira pours out her frustration. She tells Sofie she feels hopeless, ugly and fat, convinced that the prince would never give her a second glance. But Sofie reassures her, saying that's not true. She sees so much of herself in Elvira and offers her something to help with her situation. The next day, Elvira rides out into the woods with Alma, where Sofie's gift is revealed. To Elvira's shock, it's a tapeworm, something to help her lose weight and become the kind of beauty the prince won't be able to resist. Once she's slimmed down, Elvira can take an antidote to remove the worm. She begs Alma to keep it a secret, her desperation clear in her eyes. Alma, feeling uncomfortable with the lengths Elvira is going to, shakes her head and rides off, ignoring Elvira's desperate cries for her to come back. After a moment of silence, we see Elvira, her face filled with determination, swallowing the pill that contains the tapeworm. Later that evening, as Elvira returns home, she hears strange noises coming from the barn. Curiosity gets the better of her and she heads outside to investigate. To her shock, she finds Agnes and the stable boy tangled in an intimate moment, making out. The next morning, Elvira watches in silence as Rebecca storms into Agnes's room, dragging her out by the arm. She's furious, having discovered what happened the night before. Rebecca yanks off Agnes's necklace, her voice cold as she tells Agnes she's lucky not to be thrown out of the house. From now on, she declares, Agnes has no privileges, she'll be treated like a servant, working as a slave in the house with no rights whatsoever. Agnes watches helplessly from the window as Isaac is forced out of the house, naked and humiliated. 3 months later, Elvira finally removes her mask to reveal a perfectly straight nose, a transformation her mother can't stop admiring. She's also lost weight, her body now slim and toned, thanks to the tapeworm she swallowed. Looking at her reflection, Elvira feels proud of her new appearance, but when she glances out the window, she sees Agnes working in the yard, now reduced to a maid, milking the cows. Elvira's next stop is another painful aesthetic procedure. This time, she's forced to keep her eyes wide open while the doctor installs eyelashes, the procedure excruciating. Her screams fill the room, but the doctor simply tells her to endure the pain, promising that when it's all over she'll be incredibly beautiful. That night, unable to sleep because of the agonizing pain from the surgery, Elvira struggles to see through her swollen eyes. The discomfort worsens as the tapeworm's hunger grows. Starving, she stumbles out to the barn, desperate to find something to eat. Blinded by the swelling, Elvira's nerves spike when she hears a noise behind her. Terrified, she quickly hides, but to her surprise, it's just Agnes, looking down at her with a mix of pity and concern. Agnes offers her some food, her kindness a small comfort in Elvira's otherwise painful world. The next day during class, the instructor surprises everyone by selecting Elvira to lead the next choreography. Elvira, now seen as attractive enough to stand out, feels a rush of pride. At home, she succumbs to her hunger, eating uncontrollably. Agnes, who now works as a maid in the house, helps her with everything, even reading her favorite poetry aloud to distract her from the chaos in her mind. Later, as Elvira brushes her hair, she freezes in shock. Her hair is falling out in clumps. Panic sets in as she retreats to her room, trying to hide from the growing horror. Meanwhile, her mother has a visitor, a man who brings a special gown, something to make Elvira stand out at the ball. As the man inspects the gown, he notices Elvira's hair thinning and falling out. He's concerned, but before anything can be said, her mother notices too. With a look of recognition, she sees Elvira's scalp exposed under the thinning strands. Not wanting to confront the cause, the man quietly brings out a wig and gently places it on Elvira's head, hiding the evidence of her deteriorating health. That night, Elvira, consumed by hunger and frustration, eats uncontrollably while Agnes is in her room, quietly admiring her favorite gown. Agnes, secretly planning to attend the ball, carefully examines the dress, imagining herself dancing with the prince. Elvira, watching from the doorway, grows consumed with jealousy at the thought of Agnes being at the ball. In a fit of rage, she grabs the gown and violently tears it to pieces. The noise is loud enough to catch Rebecca's attention, and she rushes in to break up the fight. Agnes, in tears, leaves the room, and Rebecca reassures Elvira that Agnes won't be going to the ball after all. She has nothing to wear, and Elvira, she promises, will be the most beautiful girl in the room. With a gentle smile, Rebecca tells Elvira to go back to bed and gives her some calming potions to help her sleep. Meanwhile, in another room, Agnes sobs quietly, resting her head on her father's lifeless body. As she weeps, a bright light fills the room, and the spirit of her deceased mother seems to materialize. With a soft, guiding presence, her mother helps her into a beautiful gown and gives her a delicate shoe, preparing her for the ball. At the castle, the maidens are introduced to the prince, each one stepping forward to dance and flaunt their beauty while their resumes are read aloud. The prince, though trying to remain composed, is clearly sizing up each woman, learning what he's dealing with. When it's Elvira's turn to dance, everyone in the room is mesmerized by her beauty, each man eager to take a turn on the dance floor with her. Even the prince's friend can't help but admire her. One by one, the men line up, each hoping to get a moment with her. When it's finally the prince's turn to choose, he doesn't hesitate. He walks straight to Elvira and asks for her hand. As they dance together, Elvira is overwhelmed with emotion. She can hardly believe that the moment she's dreamed of for so long is finally happening. But just as the dream feels like it's coming true, the doors to the ballroom open and another maiden enters. Without a second thought, the prince abandons Elvira and moves to dance with Agnes. The crushing weight of the prince's sudden shift of attention shatters Elvira's hope of ever being with him. She feels her heart break as tears fill her eyes, and the world around her spins. Overcome with grief, she rushes outside to the garden, her body suddenly feeling weak. As she doubles over and vomits, she's shocked to find that what's causing her sickness are the eggs from the tapeworm she ingested. Her mother, quickly rushing to her side, tries to comfort her, but Elvira, in a panic, cries out, "I'm dying." Rebecca helps Elvira clean herself up, her voice calm but firm as she reassures her daughter that there are plenty of other good men out there for her. "You need to pull yourself together," she tells her, urging Elvira to regain some composure. Meanwhile, Agnes spends the rest of the evening twirling across the ballroom floor, dancing with various men, her laughter filling the air. Elvira watches from the sidelines, her jealousy growing as she sees her mother drunkenly mingling with multiple men. But the worst part is seeing Agnes dance with the prince. The sight is too much for Elvira to bear, and she can't tear her eyes away. Eventually, Agnes slips away from the prince and exits the ballroom, but the prince follows her. A few moments later, he returns to announce to everyone that any woman whose foot fits the glass slipper he's holding will become his bride that very night. Elvira, seething with hatred towards Agnes, storms home. Consumed by jealousy, she grabs a knife, determined to get the shoe from Agnes. When she confronts her stepsister, Elvira lunges at her, demanding the shoe. But Agnes is quick, dodging Elvira's attack and knocking the knife from her hand. Panicked, Agnes runs upstairs, but Elvira, fueled by rage, follows her, knife in hand, ready to end it all. The noise from the struggle reaches Rebecca, who comes rushing in. She tells Elvira sharply, "Get back to bed," trying to stop the madness before it goes any further. Elvira had already had her chance with the prince. Now it was time to stop pretending and go to bed. But when she finds out that her mother has brought a young man home for the night, everything changes. Desperate, Elvira sees the glass slipper the prince had used to select Agnes and tries to fit it onto her foot. But it doesn't fit. In a moment of madness, Elvira grabs a knife, places her toes on the table, and starts hacking at them, determined to make the shoe fit. Her screams of agony echo through the house, and both Agnes and the stable girl rush in, horrified by what they find. Through the pain, Elvira cries out, begging her mother to help her get the shoe on her foot. Overcome by shock, she loses consciousness. When she does, her mother, in a cold and detached manner, picks up the knife and removes the toe from Elvira's other foot. While unconscious, Elvira dreams of finally wearing the shoe, and in her dream it fits perfectly. But when she wakes up, reality hits hard. Her feet are mutilated, and all 10 of her toes are gone. Outside, a messenger arrives announcing that the prince is here. All the noble virgins should gather to see whose foot the shoe fits. Unable to walk, Elvira tumbles down the stairs and watches in despair as Agnes leaves the house, dressed in a fine gown. Agnes takes one final look at Elvira before heading off to meet the prince. The messenger arrives, confirming that the shoe fits, meaning Agnes will become the prince's bride. Elvira, crushed by disappointment, watches helplessly as the prince walks away from her. Alma finds her and in a quiet, desperate voice, asks for the tapeworm antidote. Alma, still in shock, pours some milk into a bowl and helps Elvira drink it. A moment later, Elvira begins to vomit blood as the worm starts to crawl out of her mouth. Alma, seeing this, acts quickly, pulling the worm out with brutal force. More than 10 feet of the tapeworm emerges, wriggling on the floor. Alma grabs it, cutting it in half to stop its movement, determined to end this nightmare for good. Later, Alma sneaks into Rebecca's room to steal some gold, only to find her in the midst of an intimate moment with a man. Annoyed, Rebecca simply shrugs it off and carries on with her task, ignoring the girl. Soon after, Alma helps Elvira escape the house. She lifts Elvira's legs while she uses her hands to drag herself forward. With Alma's support, Elvira climbs onto a horse and together they ride away, determined to cross the border and start anew in another town. And that's a wrap on our breakdown of The Ugly Stepsister. What do you think about this movie? Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss our in-depth movie analyses and thrilling reviews. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tuned for more edge-of-your-seat content.